The stars looked different when you couldn't reach them. Captain Una Park stared through the viewport of her small patrol ship, watching the shimmer of the barrier that surrounded Earth's entire solar system. It had been there for 23 years now, a wall of energy that no human ship could cross. The barrier glowed faintly blue at the edges, where Una's sensors probed its surface. She had done this 100 times before, collecting data, looking for weaknesses. The Galactic Council had put this prison around humanity, and they had no intention of taking it down anytime soon. Her console beeped. Daeho Troy's voice came through the speaker, tinged with his usual mix of frustration and humor. Getting anything useful out there, or are we just wasting fuel again? Una smiled despite herself. Daeho had been her friend since the academy, back when they both believed Earth would join the galactic community as equals. That dream had died fast. Same patterns as always. But Minho thinks he found something. Minho always thinks he found something, Daeho said. Last month it was quantum fluctuations. Month before that, harmonic resonance. The man sees hope in math equations. Maybe that's what we need, Una said quietly. She pulled her ship away from the barrier and began the journey back to the hidden moon base where the Resistance operated. 23 years ago. Everything had changed. Humanity had finally cracked faster than light travel. The celebrations lasted 3 days. On the 4th day, they made first contact with an alien ship near Jupiter. The meeting should have been historic. Instead, it became a disaster. The alien vessel had approached Earth's first FTL ship without warning. Human Captain Taiwan mistook their scanning beam for a weapon and fired in panic. 3 aliens died before the misunderstanding was cleared. Earth apologized immediately, desperately. The aliens accepted the apology but reported the incident to the Galactic Council. 2 months later, the Council arrived with thousands of ships. They erected the barrier in a single day, sealing Earth's entire solar system. The message was clear and final. Humanity was too dangerous, too unpredictable, too violent. They would remain in quarantine until they evolved beyond their aggressive nature. The Council estimated this would take 500 to 1,000 years. Earth's government had protested, pleaded, and eventually accepted. Most of humanity tried to move on with their lives, trapped but alive. But some refused to accept the cage. Una was one of them. The moon base appeared on her sensors, hidden inside an old mining crater. Una guided her ship through the camouflaged entrance and landed in the small hangar. Daeho was waiting for her, along with Dr. Minho Kim and Admiral Jiwon Lee. Minho looked like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were bright with excitement as he clutched a data tablet. "I was right," he said before Una even removed her helmet. "The barrier has a flaw?" Admiral Jiwon crossed her arms. She was a tall woman with gray hair and a face that had seen too many disappointments. "We've heard this before, Doctor. The barrier is maintained by technology 1,000 years ahead of ours." "Yes," Minho agreed, his fingers dancing across the tablet. "But even advanced technology follows rules. Physics doesn't care how smart you are. And I found a pattern in the energy readings Una collected." He projected a hologram into the air. Complex waves of light pulsed and shifted. "The barrier isn't static. It cycles through different frequencies to prevent exactly what we're trying to do. But the cycling creates a vulnerability. For exactly 4.7 seconds every 73 hours, there's a mathematical gap in the field." Daeho leaned forward, squinting at the numbers. 4.7 seconds? That's nothing. No ship we have could get through the barrier in that time. No ship we have now, Minho corrected. But if we built something small, something fast enough. He trailed off, letting them imagine the possibilities. Una felt her heart beating faster. "How small? How fast?" "Single pilot," Minho said. "Maybe 2 if we're lucky. And the acceleration would have to be extreme. More than any human has ever endured. People have died for less important reasons," Una said. She looked at Admiral Jiwon. "We have to try." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. She had opposed the resistance at first, believing diplomacy would eventually work. But year after year of silence from the Council had changed her mind. If you're wrong, we waste resources. If you're right and we fail, we could make things worse. They've already sentenced us to death, Yuna said. Just a slow one. We found records, Admiral. Other species were quarantined throughout galactic history. Most of them went extinct within 2 centuries. Isolation kills civilizations. Guwan's jaw tightened. She had seen the same records. What do you need? Time materials and someone crazy enough to test the prototype, Minho said. Deho raised his hand. I can build it if you can design it. As for the test pilot, he looked at Yuna. She nodded. I'll do it. Over the next weeks, the team worked in secret. Minho calculated and recalculated, checking his math obsessively. Deho fabricated parts from salvaged materials, building a ship unlike anything Earth had made before. They called it the Needle, a long, thin craft designed for one purpose, punching through the impossible. Meanwhile, something else was happening far beyond Earth's prison. A member of the Galactic Council named Taiyang, belonging to a species called the Valorians, had been monitoring human broadcasts. The Valorians were known for their strict adherence to law, but Taiyang had always been curious about the species his people helped imprison. He watched human news, listened to human music, read human philosophy. What he found troubled him. These weren't the violent primitives the Council claimed. They were complex, creative, and desperately trying to improve themselves. Every day, Taiyang's doubts grew stronger. The first test of the Needle was scheduled for a cold Tuesday morning. Yuna climbed into the cramped cockpit, her hands steady despite her racing thoughts. Through her headset, she heard Minho counting down the seconds until the barrier's vulnerability window. Remember, Deho said, the acceleration will feel like getting hit by a train. The ship's not pretty, but it'll hold together, probably. Your confidence is inspiring, Yuna said dryly. 30 seconds, Minho announced. 20. Yuna's finger hovered over the ignition. This was insane. This was necessary. This was humanity's only chance. Mark! She triggered the engines. The Needle screamed forward, pressing her back into the seat with crushing force. Her vision narrowed. Her ribs felt like they might crack. The barrier rushed toward her, blue and deadly and beautiful. For one perfect moment, Yuna thought they had done it. Then the barrier caught the Needle's nose, and everything exploded in pain and light. Yuna woke up in the medical bay with every bone in her body aching. Deho sat beside her bed, his face pale. You've been out for 6 hours. The doctors say you're lucky to be alive. She tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. The Needle. Scrap metal, Deho said. The barrier caught the front third of the ship and turned it into something that looks like frozen glass. If you'd been even half a second slower hitting the emergency eject, you'd be frozen glass too. Yuna closed her eyes, fighting back tears of frustration. They had been so close. Minho's calculations were right, though. The gap exists. Yeah, but 4.7 seconds isn't enough time. Not with our current technology. Deho stood and paced the small room. I've been running numbers all night. We need to make you faster. The ship was already past its safety limits, Yuna said. Not the ship, you. Deho pulled out his tablet and showed her a series of diagrams. Human reaction time is about 200 milliseconds on average. But we've been working with quantum-entangled neural interfaces for medical purposes. What if we adapted that technology for piloting? Yuna studied the diagrams. The technology was experimental and dangerous, but it could work. You want to wire my brain directly into the ship's controls. Your thoughts would become commands instantly. No delay between decision and action. Combined with a redesigned ship, it might give us the edge we need. Before Yuna could respond, Admiral Jiwan entered with a woman Yuna didn't recognize. The stranger wore a military uniform with intelligence insignia. She had sharp eyes that seemed to evaluate everything. This is Commander Hain Song, Jiwan said. She's been investigating the Council's historical records. What she found changes everything. Hain stepped forward and activated a holographic display. I accessed the Council's public archives, which go back 10,000 years. During that time, they've quarantined 47 different species. Want to guess how many were eventually released? Yuna felt cold. How many? 3. And those 3 had to prove themselves over centuries of observation. The other 44 either went extinct or are still in quarantine. The longest quarantine still active has lasted 8,000 years. The room went silent. Deho spoke first, his voice hollow. They're not protecting us. They're eliminating us slowly. There's more, Heian continued. I found records of what happened to isolated species. Cut off from outside contact and trade, their economies collapse. Technological development stagnates. Birth rates decline. Within 2 centuries, most quarantined civilizations simply fade away. The Council doesn't have to destroy us directly. Time does it for them. Admiral Zhuan's expression was grim. This information stays in this room for now. If the general population learns we're facing extinction, there could be panic. But it also means we can't give up. The resistance isn't just about freedom anymore. It's about survival. Over the following weeks, the team worked with renewed urgency. Deho designed a new ship called the Javelin, larger and sturdier than the Needle. It could carry 2 people and had enough shielding to survive brief contact with the barrier. Meanwhile, a young test pilot named Suyun Beek volunteered for the neural interface procedure. He was 26, brilliant, and absolutely fearless. The surgery took 14 hours. When Suyun woke up, thin cables ran from ports behind his ears to a specialized helmet. How do you feel? Minho asked. Suyun blinked slowly. Like I can hear colors and see sounds. Give me a few days to adjust. Those few days became weeks of brutal training. Suyun practiced in simulators, learning to merge his thoughts with the ship's systems. At first, the ship would lurch and spin wildly as his stray thoughts triggered random commands. But gradually he learned control. During this time, something unexpected happened. Earth received an encrypted message from deep space. It took 3 days to decode. When they finally cracked it, the message was simple: barrier generator locations. Use wisely. A friend. The message included detailed schematics of the barrier's power sources, hidden throughout the solar system. Minho studied them obsessively. This is genuine Council technology. Whoever sent this has high-level access. It's a trap, Haynes said immediately. Maybe, Jiwan agreed. Or maybe we have an ally out there. Far beyond Earth's barrier, Taiyang the Valorian sat in his private chambers staring at his hands. He had just committed treason against the Council. If caught, he would be executed. But he couldn't shake the feeling that imprisoning humanity was wrong. He had watched human broadcasts for months now. He'd seen their art, their music, their endless debates about morality and justice. These were not monsters. They were a young species that made a tragic mistake. They deserved a chance to prove themselves. Not a slow death sentence. Taiyang had included a warning in his message. They fear what you might become, not what you are. He hoped the humans would understand back on Earth. Soon was finally ready for his first real test. The new Javelin sat in the launch bay, sleek and deadly. Suyun climbed into the pilot's seat and connected his neural interface to the ship's systems. Instantly, the ship became an extension of his body. He could feel the engines like muscles, the sensors like additional eyes. This is incredible, he breathed. Don't get cocky, Deho warned over the comb. You're about to experience GIF forces that would kill a normal pilot. The neural interface will help, but it's still going to hurt. Minho began the countdown. Yuna watched from the control room, her ribs still healing from her own attempt. She felt guilty that someone else was risking their life for her failed mission. The moment came. Suyun triggered the engines, and the Javelin shot forward like a bullet. His consciousness merged with the ship completely. He could feel every molecule of the barrier as he approached it. The gap appeared in his enhanced perception. A tiny window of possibility. He aimed for it with inhuman precision. The Javelin hit the gap perfectly. For a fraction of a second, Suyun felt nothing but empty space. Then the gap closed, and the barrier's energy caught the ship's tail section. Alarm screamed. The ship spun violently, but Suyun was through. On the other side? Beyond the prison, his triumph lasted 3 seconds before the ship's main engine exploded. Emergency systems kicked in, barely keeping him alive as the crippled javelin drifted in space beyond the barrier, back at the moon base. The control room erupted in chaotic celebration and terror. Suyun had done it. He had actually escaped Earth's prison. But now he was stranded in dead space with failing life support. "Get him back here?" Yuna shouted. "We can't," Minho said, his voice breaking. "The next barrier gap isn't for 73 hours. He only has 48 hours of air." Daeho slammed his fist on the console. "Then we send another ship through. We rescue him and risk more lives?" Han demanded. Admiral Jiwan held up her hand for silence. "We send a rescue mission. And we don't stop until every human who wants to leave this cage can do so." She turned to the team. "Suyun proved it's possible. Now we prove it's repeatable. Get me 3 more javelins ready within the month." Yuna met the Admiral's eyes and nodded. They had crossed a line. There was no going back now. The rescue mission launched 60 hours later. 2 javelins, piloted by Yuna and a veteran named June Park, punched through the barrier gap and found Suyun's crippled ship drifting in the dark. He was unconscious but alive, his air supply down to the last 30 minutes. They brought him home and immediately began planning the next phase, 17 more. Attempts followed over the next 3 months. Each one taught them something new. Each one nearly killed someone. But slowly, impossibly, they got better at it. The 18th attempt succeeded completely. A javelin made it through the barrier, stayed out for 6 hours, and returned safely. Earth's government maintained public silence about the escapes, but privately, resources flowed to the resistance. Admiral Jiwan had convinced the Planetary Council that this was humanity's only real chance at survival. The official story was military exercises. The truth was preparation for mass exodus. Daeho worked 20-hour days building more javelins. Minho refined the calculations, finding ways to extend the barrier gap by fractions of a second. Yuna trained new pilots in the neural interface technology. The resistance was growing into something bigger, something that felt like hope, but the Galactic Council wasn't blind. High Arbiter Vexilon, the leader of the council, sat in his chambers on the massive station that served as the Galactic Government Center. Reports of unusual energy signatures near Earth's barrier crossed his desk daily. He had ignored them at first, but now they were becoming too frequent to dismiss. "Investigate," he ordered his security forces. "If the humans are attempting to breach the quarantine, we must know immediately." A fleet of council ships approached Earth's barrier, their sensors sweeping for anomalies. If they found the Resistance's operations, the consequences would be severe. The Council might reinforce the barrier or worse, collapse it inward and destroy everything in Earth's solar system as a final solution. Yuna stood in the command center, watching the Council ships on their long-range sensors. "They know something is wrong. Can we hide the next launch?" June asked. He was Yuna's older brother, a skilled tactician who had joined the Resistance after his daughter was born. He wanted her to grow up free. "Not from those sensors," Haynes said. She had been studying Council technology for months. "They'll detect any javelin launch within seconds." Admiral Jiwan made a decision. "Then we don't hide it. We distract them." She turned to June. "How many ships can Earth's defense force mobilize in 48 hours? June's eyes widened. "For what purpose?" "The largest military exercise in Earth's history. We'll fill the space near the barrier with so many ships, so much energy, that the Council won't be able to tell a javelin launch from background noise." It was a massive risk. The Council might interpret a large fleet deployment as an act of war. But Yuna understood Jiwan's thinking. They were out of time. If the Council discovered the escapes before they could act, everything would be lost. The exercise began on a Monday morning. 300 Earth ships, everything from military cruisers to repurposed mining vessels, spread out across the inner solar system. They ran drills, fired weapons at target drones, and created enough electromagnetic chaos to blind any sensor system hidden among them. 4 javelins prepared for the most important mission yet. Yuna and Minho would pilot the first one together. 3 more crews stood ready as backup. Their goal wasn't just to escape. It was to make contact with the galaxy and tell humanity's story. Taiyang watched the activity from his ship in the Council fleet. He knew immediately what the humans were doing. The military exercise was a cover. They were planning something bold. He wanted to help but didn't dare transmit another message. Council security was already investigating the source of his first leak. Instead, Taiyang did something more subtle. He filed a false sensor report claiming his ship had detected a malfunction in his scanner array. The report forced his ship to withdraw from the investigation for recalibration. It was a small thing, but it removed 1 pair of watching eyes. Minho sat beside Yuna in the Javelin's cockpit, running final system checks. "Nervous?" he asked. Terrified, Yuna admitted, "You?" "I keep calculating the probability of success." "The numbers aren't encouraging?" "Then stop calculating and start believing," Yuna said with a slight smile. The countdown began. Outside, the military exercise reached its peak intensity. 300 ships maneuvered and fired, creating a storm of energy. At the exact moment the barrier gap opened, 4 javelins launched simultaneously from 4 different locations. The Council ships detected something, but couldn't pinpoint the sources through all the interference. By the time they realized what was happening, it was too late. Yuna felt the familiar crushing acceleration as the javelin raced toward the barrier. Beside her, Minho had his eyes closed, his neural interface feeding him data streams directly into his consciousness. Gap opening in 3.2. mark. The ship hit the opening perfectly and passed through clean. No damage, no alarms. Just the sudden freedom of open space beyond the prison walls. "We're through," Yuna said, hardly believing it. "We're actually through." Behind them, 3 more javelins emerged successfully. 4 human ships now floated in unrestricted space for the first time in 23 years. Yuna activated the communication array and began broadcasting on every frequency. The message they had prepared for this moment was simple but powerful. It contained the full history of Earth's quarantine, the unjust circumstances of their imprisonment, and a plea for the galaxy to judge humanity by their actions, not by predictions. The message included samples of human culture, music from every continent, art from every era, philosophical texts, scientific discoveries, and personal stories from ordinary people. It was a portrait of humanity in their own words, unfiltered and honest. "Broadcasting on all channels," Minho confirmed. "By my calculations, the message will reach the nearest inhabited systems within 6 hours." The Council ships reacted immediately. Dozens of vessels broke formation and began pursuit. Yuna triggered the Javelin's engines and ran. The other 3 ships scattered in different directions, each broadcasting the same message, making it impossible for the Council to silence them all. "They're gaining on us," Minho warned. "Council ships are faster than anything we have." "Then we go somewhere they can't follow easily," Yuna said. She plotted a course through a nearby asteroid field, using Earth's detailed maps of the local space. The Council ships were faster, but Yuna knew this region like the back of her hand. Back on Earth, the control room watched in tense silence. They had lost direct contact with the javelins once they escaped the barrier, but long-range sensors showed the pursuit. "They can't outrun Council ships forever," Hen said. Admiral Jawan stood rigid, her hands clasped behind her back. "They don't need to outrun them forever. Just long enough for the message to spread." The 4 javelins raced through space, broadcasting humanity's plea to every corner of the galaxy they could reach. One by one, Council ships caught up with them. The first javelin was forced to surrender after 8 hours. The second lasted 12 hours before its engines failed, but Yuna and Minho kept running. They dodged through asteroid fields, dove close to dangerous radiation zones, and used every trick they knew. 30 hours after their escape, exhausted and running on fumes, they detected something unexpected. A ship appeared on their sensors, but it wasn't a Council vessel. It was older, stranger, and it was broadcasting a greeting in broken English. Human ship, this is Elder Thane of the Meridian people. I offer you sanctuary. Follow my coordinates. Minho looked at Yuna. Could be a trap. Could be salvation, Yuna countered. Either way, we're out of options. They followed the coordinates to a massive space station hidden in a nebula. The station was ancient, covered in symbols and designs unlike anything in Earth's database. As they docked, Yuna realized they were about to learn whether humanity had any friends in the galaxy or if they were truly alone. Elder Thane was not what Yuna expected. The Meridian stood nearly 3 meters tall, with skin like polished stone and eyes that glowed with soft amber light. He moved slowly, each gesture deliberate and ancient. His species had been part of the galaxy for over 10,000 years, and Thane himself had lived for 3,000 of them. You are safe here, Thane said in heavily accented but clear English. The Council cannot touch you on Meridian territory. We negotiated that privilege long ago. Yuna and Minho followed him through corridors that seemed to have been carved from a single piece of crystal. Other Meridians watched them with curious but not hostile eyes. After 23 years of isolation, being surrounded by aliens felt surreal. Why help us? Minho asked. The Council could punish your people for harboring us. Thane stopped and turned, his ancient eyes studying them both. Because 10,000 years ago the Council did to my people exactly what they have done to yours. They feared our potential and locked us away. We spent 2,000 years in quarantine before another species called the Architects intervened on our behalf. He led them to a vast library filled with holographic records. With a gesture, he brought up an image of graceful beings made of light and mathematics. The Architects were the wisest species the galaxy had ever known. They studied the Council's treatment of the Meridians and declared it unjust. They argued that fear of potential was the death of progress itself. What happened to them? Yuna asked, staring at the beautiful light beings. They vanished 3,000 years ago, Thane said quietly. No one knows where they went or why. But their last message to the galaxy was clear. Judge species by their choices, not by fear of what they might become. Minho's hands trembled as he recorded everything with his datapad. This is the precedent we need. If the Architects intervened once, it proves the Council can be challenged. It also proves the Council can be swayed by public pressure, Thane added, which is why your message was brilliant. By broadcasting to the entire galaxy, you made your cause public. The Council can no longer handle this quietly. Back on Earth. Ambassador Haijin Ro was dealing with the consequences of that public message. Her communication console hadn't stopped flashing in 3 days. Alien species from across the galaxy were reaching out, some sympathetic, some hostile, all demanding answers. A young hacker named Subin Quan had intercepted some of the Council's internal communications and leaked them to Earth's government. The intercepted messages revealed deep divisions within the Council itself. Some members thought humanity should be given a chance. Others wanted the barrier reinforced or worse. Haijin prepared for the most important speech of her life. The Council had agreed to a special tribunal to address the human question. She would represent Earth before hundreds of alien species, arguing for humanity's freedom. Meanwhile, the other 3 Javelin crews had reached different parts of the galaxy. Each team made contact with different civilizations, sharing humanity's story from their own perspectives. One crew reached an industrial world where workers lived in near slavery. The humans' message about freedom and self-determination sparked something in that population. Within weeks, labor movements began demanding better treatment. Another crew landed on a scientific research station where scholars had long questioned the Council's authority. The researchers welcomed the humans and began studying their technology and culture with fascination. The third crew encountered a species that had itself been threatened with quarantine centuries ago. They understood humanity's struggle personally and immediately offered their support. Across the galaxy, humanity's message spread like wildfire. Not everyone supported them. Many species agreed with the Council that humans were dangerous. But enough voices called for justice that the Council could no longer ignore the issue. Tang's role in helping humanity was finally discovered. Council security traced the leaked barrier specifications back to his ship. He was arrested and brought before High Arbiter Vexilon himself. "You have committed treason," Vexilon said, his multiple eyes fixed on Taiyang. "You aided a quarantined species in breaching containment. You endangered the entire galaxy for your misguided sympathy." Taiyang stood straight, unafraid. "I followed a higher law than the Council's, the law of compassion. The humans deserved a chance to speak for themselves. They had a chance. They failed it when they killed our explorers. That was a tragic accident, not a declaration of war. And you sentenced an entire species to slow extinction for one ship captain's panicked mistake. Where is the justice in that?" Vexilon's expression hardened. "You will be executed at dawn. Perhaps your death will remind others why Council law must be obeyed." But as word of Taiyang's impending execution spread, something unexpected happened. Protests erupted on dozens of worlds. The Valorian people, normally strict followers of law, demanded Taiyang's release. Other species joined them. The tribunal hadn't even begun yet, and already the galaxy was fracturing over the human question on the Meridian Station. Yuna and Minho worked with Elder Thane to prepare their case. They gathered evidence, testimonies, and examples of humanity's capacity for good. Thane showed them recordings of other species the Council had helped destroy through isolation. "Your species has one advantage," Thane said. "You are loud, you refuse to be ignored. The Meridians were quiet in our suffering. By the time we fought back, we had nearly been broken. But you humans, you escaped your cage within 23 years and made the entire galaxy listen. That courage will serve you well." A message arrived from Earth. Ambassador Haijin had successfully argued for a full council vote on humanity's status. Every member species would have a say. The vote would determine whether Earth's barrier would fall or become permanent. Haijin had also sent another piece of news. Suyun and the other captured Javelin crews had been released as a gesture of good faith before the tribunal. They were being escorted back to Earth under council guard. It was a small victory, but Yuna cried when she heard it. Her friends were coming home. The tribunal was scheduled for 3 weeks from now. In that time, Earth had to convince the galaxy that humanity deserved freedom. It seemed an impossible task. Hundreds of species, each with their own interests and prejudices, would decide Earth's fate, but humans had already done the impossible once. They had escaped a prison built by technology centuries beyond their own. They had made the galaxy listen when the galaxy wanted them silent. Yuna stood on the observation deck of Thane's station, looking out at the stars she had fought so hard to reach. Minho joined her, holding 2 cups of something the Meridians called tea but tasted like cinnamon and electricity. "Think we have a chance?" he asked. "We're humans," Yuna said. "We always have a chance, even when we shouldn't." On Earth, Deho continued building javelins. If the vote went badly, he wanted humanity ready to evacuate anyone who wanted to leave. Admiral Jiwan prepared Earth's defense forces for either celebration or war. Hussein coordinated intelligence gathering across the galaxy, trying to predict which species would vote which way, and across hundreds of worlds, ordinary people from dozens of species watched and waited. Many had never thought about the humans in quarantine before, but now they couldn't look away. The question of humanity's fate had become a question about the nature of justice itself. High Arbiter Vexilon sat alone in his chambers, reviewing casualty reports from the incident 23 years ago. 3 aliens dead. 3 lives lost to human fear and violence. But in the years since, through intercepted broadcasts, he had watched millions of human lives slowly crushed by isolation. He had told himself it was necessary, that humanity was too dangerous. But watching the galaxy fracture over this issue, watching his own council members turn against each other, Vexilon wondered if he had made the right choice all those years ago. Fear had driven his decision then. What would drive it now? The council chamber was the largest structure Yuna had ever seen. It floated in space between 3 stars, a massive sphere where representatives from every known civilization could gather. Today, over 500 species had sent delegates. The gallery was packed with observers. The entire galaxy was watching. Yuna sat with Minho and Elder Thane in the human delegation section. Ambassador Haijin stood at the speaking platform, looking small and fragile before the assembled might of galactic civilization. But her voice was steady when she began. Honored council members, I speak today not just for Earth, but for the principle of justice itself. 23 years ago, my people made a terrible mistake. Captain Taiwan, frightened and confused during first contact, fired on an alien ship. 3 lives were lost. We have never stopped mourning them. Holographic images appeared in the center of the chamber, showing the 3 aliens who had died. Their names, their families, their accomplishments. Haijin had done her research. But for that one captain's mistake, you sentenced 4 billion humans to slow death by isolation. You imprisoned children who weren't born when the incident happened. You condemned scientists, artists, teachers, and healers to fade away in the dark. Where is the justice in that? High Arbiter Vexilon spoke from his elevated platform. The Council acted to protect the galaxy. Human psychological profiles showed extreme aggression and unpredictability. Every simulation suggested they would become a destabilizing force if allowed to spread. Simulations? Haijin said, her voice hard. Not facts. Not evidence? You imprisoned us based on fear of what we might do, not what we had done. A delegate from a species called the Krell stood. They were a warrior race, respected throughout the galaxy. The human speaks true. We Krell have fought many wars. We have aggression bred into our very genes. Yet you trade with us, negotiate with us, accept us. How are humans different? Vexilon's expression was strained. The Krell proved themselves over centuries of controlled contact. Humans had barely achieved spaceflight when they killed our explorers. Then let them prove themselves now, another voice called. It was Chancellor Nira, leader of a coalition of 37 species who supported humanity. Give them the same chance you gave the Krell, the Meridians, and countless others. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species demanded humanity remain in quarantine. Others called for immediate release. The arguments grew heated, threatening to dissolve into chaos. Then a soft chime rang through the chamber. Elder Thane had requested to speak. The ancient Meridian rose slowly, and the chamber fell silent out of respect for his age and wisdom. I was young when my people were quarantined, Thane said, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast space. I watched my civilization slowly die. We lost our hope, our creativity, our will to exist. When the architects finally secured our release, we were barely half of what we had been. He gestured to the images of the 3 dead aliens still floating in the chamber. 3 lives were lost in the human incident. Tragic and unforgivable. But how many lives has the quarantine destroyed? How many human children will never see the stars? How many geniuses died with their discoveries locked in a cage? You claim to protect the galaxy, but you have created a greater tragedy than the one you sought to prevent. The chamber was silent. Even those who opposed humanity seemed moved by Thane's words. Haijin seized the moment. We don't ask for your trust. We ask for the chance to earn it. Let us prove ourselves through actions, not simulations. Let us show you who we really are. From Earth, a new transmission began broadcasting. It had been prepared for this exact moment. Admiral Jiwan had coordinated with resistance cells across Earth to create something unprecedented. The transmission showed human scientists sharing revolutionary medical technology with alien researchers. It showed human engineers offering solutions to a fuel crisis that had plagued several council worlds for decades. It showed human artists creating works celebrating alien cultures they had only learned about through intercepted broadcasts. These discoveries were made in isolation, Haijin explained. Imagine what humanity could achieve working alongside the galaxy instead of locked away from it. A Valorian delegate stood. Before we vote, there is another matter. One of our own, Taiyang, sits in your prison, awaiting execution for helping these humans. If you vote to free humanity but kill the one who gave them hope, what does that say about council justice? Vexilon looked uncomfortable. Taiyang broke our laws. He must face consequences. Then put it to the vote, Chancellor Nera suggested. Let the Council decide both fates together. Free humanity and pardon Taiyang or condemn both. It was a brilliant tactical move. Many species who might have voted against humanity would not vote for Taiyang's execution. The issues were now linked. Vexilon knew he had lost control of the proceedings, but there was nothing he could do. Very well. The Council will vote. All those in favor of lifting Earth's quarantine and pardoning the Valorian traitor, signal now. The voting display appeared, showing each species' choice in real time. Yuna held her breath. Green lights meant yes. Red meant no. The board filled with colors. The vote was close. Agonizingly close. Species Yuna had never heard of held humanity's fate in their hands. With each new vote, her heart raced faster. Finally, one species remained. A small, quiet civilization called the Whisperers who rarely participated in council politics. Everyone waited for their vote. The Whisperer delegates stood. We have listened to all arguments. We vote yes. Free the humans. Give them their chance. The final tally appeared. 251 yes. 249 no. Humanity had won by 2 votes. The chamber erupted in noise. Some species cheered. Others protested angrily. Vexilon sat motionless on his platform, looking older than Yuna had ever seen him. The Council has spoken, he said quietly. The barrier will be deactivated. Earth is free. Back on Earth, people poured into the streets when the news broke. 23 years of imprisonment were over. Deho wept openly in the control room. Admiral Jiwan allowed herself a rare smile. Suyun and the other returned pilots celebrated with their families, but Yuna felt something else. Not just joy, but responsibility. The galaxy had given humanity a chance. Now they had to prove worthy of it. Over the next weeks, the barrier came down in stages. Council ships withdrew, their mission complete. The first civilian ships from Earth ventured into open space, carrying scientists, diplomats, and explorers eager to see the galaxy. Taiyang was released and offered honorary human citizenship. He accepted, choosing to stay on Earth as a cultural liaison. When he met Yuna for the first time, he simply said, "I knew you would make it." Humans are too stubborn to give up. Earth's government established the diplomatic corps, sending ambassadors to every species willing to meet with them. They shared technology freely, offering help to worlds in need. Slowly, carefully, humanity began building relationships across the galaxy. Not everyone accepted them. Some species still viewed humans with suspicion. There were incidents, misunderstandings, and conflicts. But there were also friendships, partnerships, and alliances. 5 years after the barrier fell, Yuna stood on the bridge of Earth's first deep space exploration vessel. She was captain now, leading a crew of both humans and aliens on a mission to chart unknown regions of the galaxy. Minho served as her chief science officer. Deho had designed the ship's engines. It felt right somehow that the people who had broken the cage were now exploring what lay beyond it. "Captain, we're approaching the designated coordinates," Minho reported. Yuna looked at the viewscreen, showing a nebula that no human ship had ever visited. Somewhere in that cloud of gas and dust might be new worlds, new life, new possibilities. "Take us in," she ordered. As the ship glided into the nebula, Yuna thought about how far humanity had come. From a species imprisoned and forgotten, to explorers welcomed among the stars. It hadn't been easy. Many had suffered. Some had died. But they had proven that determination and hope could overcome any obstacle back on Earth. A memorial stood in what was once the moon base where the resistance had been born. It bore the names of everyone who had fought for freedom, including the 3 aliens who died in the first contact incident. Beneath those names, a simple inscription: "They feared what we might become. We showed them what we chose to be." 50 years later, humanity would be known throughout the galaxy as the Bridge Builders. They connected species who had never spoken before. They solved problems that had seemed impossible. They brought together civilizations that had been enemies for millennia, but that was the future. For now, Yuna and her crew had stars to explore, worlds to discover, and a promise to keep. They would prove every single day that the galaxy had made the right choice. The ship disappeared into the nebula, and humanity's real journey began.